Today, I want to talk about empowerment, but not just empowerment. I want to talk specifically about what empowerment feels like. But before I start, a quick note on empowerment as it applies to autistic individuals. I have worked with autistic individuals all across the spectrum, and I have come to learn that empowerment can manifest in anybody. It just manifests differently for different people. For some autistic individuals I work with, empowerment means confronting people who talk to them a certain way or look down on them. For others, it means simply remembering that you have headphones, you're told you can put them on if they get too loud, and you want to put them on because it's loud, so you should. Empowerment can manifest in everybody. Once we understand that, we can talk about how this interacts with the autistic experience. When people ask me what it's like to be an autistic person in today's day and age, the first thing I talk about are standards and expectations. We no longer live in a world that is inaccessible to autistic people. There are spaces for autistic people. Autistic voices are being listened to. But we still live in a world that has standards and expectations that are still always a little off. The world never responds quite right. I work with somebody who is in their 50s, but still has a lot of difficulties with driving, specifically on the highway. A while ago, they went to a family member's wedding. And at this wedding, they got up and they gave a speech. And after the speech, everybody came up to them and was like, wow, that was incredible. You're autistic, but you were so eloquent and fluent. That was an incredible speech. And they're talking to me about this, and they go, I just wanted to yell at them, no, this is not what I need your help and congratulations and support on. Driving on the highway is what I need your congratulations and support on. The thing that came easy to him was met with cheers and congratulations. But the thing he struggled with and pushed to be able to do, people didn't even think twice about because it was assumed he could do it. The standards and expectations were just a little off. And sometimes this comes in way more insidious forms. When I was in elementary school, I really liked learning, which you think would be a good thing. But I also asked a lot of questions, as I was autistic and had a learning disability. And on multiple occasions, once to my parents directly, teachers complained about me being purposefully argumentative, thinking I was trying to cause problems because I guess I just didn't want to be there. And this really hurt me, because from my perspective, I was there to learn, and I was trying to learn, and I was getting in trouble for it. So the next time I had a question, I looked around at all the kids who would look at me differently, at the teacher who would be annoyed, and I thought about myself feeling different from everybody yet again, and I wouldn't ask my question. And this is a really important piece of the puzzle, because this is why so many autistic individuals, or at least one of the reasons, that we tend to be so resistant to self-advocacy. Even when you can show us from A to B, if you do this, this will happen, and it will improve your life in this way, which you want. And we still seem resistant. This is why. It's not because we think people are trying to trick us or approach this maliciously. It's because we don't believe. We don't believe that the world this time is going to respond the way it should, the way you say it will. And what happens the first time that we start to believe and it doesn't go right? Unforeseen circumstances occur. Now we have all the validation we could ever need to not interact with the world, to not engage. And this ends up as a sense of hesitance, carefulness, tepidness when it comes to interacting with the world. A sense that the world's not going to react fairly, so why interact with it at all? And this can be extremely hurtful. It can leave autistic individuals with this sense of fear in engaging with the world. And that sense of fear is what disempowerment feels like. So how do we start addressing something that's so often overlooked? Well, we can start by talking about it.
Welcome back, folks at home, to Speak Your Mind. Thank you so much. Let's give a great round of applause for Jeremy K. Farrell. Am I saying your name right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Yes, we can talk about it, and we can also write about it. So I am just so moved and so grateful that you came on the show to talk about something that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And you are an autism advocate and a social justice advocate and a public speaker and obviously a writer, because you had to put together your thoughts in order to give that essay, that speech. So before we go into what we shared, what our writing prompt is going to be, I just want to ask you a question that I ask most of my artists about what inspires you the most in your writing or your speaking.
Of course. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure to be here and get to talk about this. I find such joy and passion in talking about autism and autistic individuals and the world we can create for ourselves. And I think I find a lot of the passion in that sense of community, that sense that I and every other autistic person are having similar experiences and are really figuring out this world together, and we can find strength and understanding in each other. A while ago, I realized something that seems obvious in retrospect, which is that the only people who are ever going to be able to really understand the autistic experience and what I'm going through are other autistic individuals. So finding ways to create that sense of community, bring us together, and give us spaces to talk about our experiences and feel empowered really drives me to do a lot of this work.
Yeah, and I think too it's probably very inspiring for other autistic people to see you out there doing it and giving them permission to be like, oh, okay, now I can do that too. So of course, folks at home, it's also about you. We want to get you writing, whether you are a professional writer or you've never picked up a pen, but you have something brewing in your mind and in your heart. This is the time to take out your journal and grab a pen because our writing prompt today, which Jeremy brought to me, is what does empowerment feel like? So what does empowerment feel like? So we both wrote something at home, so we're going to share it now. And I saved the best for last, so I'm going to share mine first, if that's okay.
I mean, if you insist that mine is better, but I don't.
All right, so you're the expert. You're the expert. All right, so empowerment. So folks at home, if you're just joining us, I like to set up my journal by writing lines 1 to 10. It's a 5 to 10 line poem that you're going to write. If you go over, it's okay. As you can see, mine is 23. We're not doing a brainstorm, but if you want to go back to some earlier episodes, if you want to warm up the brain, you can follow along with the brainstorm. It gets, it just gets everything moving. And you'll find when you do it this way, when you number it, when you get to line 5, you want to keep going and just think one line at a time. So do not be intimidated. It does not matter if it doesn't make sense. All right. So here's mine. Empowerment feels like a smile in the face of a bad day in a grumpy mood. A march on DC when no cameras around to shoot. Sign language taught not just to the deaf, but to the little girl and boy who now have an expanded version of normal. Saying no to a boss, a friend, a neighbor who treats you dirty. And yes, to opposite forces. What does empowerment feel like? A hug. A hurt, a warm breeze, a fierce fire, a new, old sensation supporting all that is justice.
I loved that. Had such a feel to it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you're next.
Okay. Let me get this out just to make sure that I don't forget anything. My insides are cosmic. They stretch on forever, through endless thoughts, empty miles, and into the future. My lungs are cosmic, full of air, smoke, and stardust. One day I hope to see the forming of planets. My heart is cosmic, the way it commands, the infinities that I see in my hands. I am more than I can comprehend. Through surges of electricity, I feel new teeth coming in. And I don't want to bite, but you shouldn't forget that I can.
Love it. Do the sign language applause. That's the sign language applause. beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. And so I love that you're here because it really does speak to sort of like the multiple layers of what I feel is my mission. Yes, I'm a poet, but I'm also a diversity advocate. And yes, I advocate for ethnic diversity, but I really advocate for all diversity, especially special needs, because I work with special needs kids. I work with I worked with autistic kids, and I think everything that you talked about it's just so much of it rings true, especially in the school system. I worked in the school system, and I think the hardest thing is that people just don't understand, and even teachers trained really don't understand. And I worked with a boy, he was 14 years old, and he was kicked out of public school, brought into this private school because of aggression. But it's like nobody would take the time to understand, like, what is he frustrated about? Because he was super duper smart and he just was trying to advocate for himself. But because he didn't have the language and the words to do it, it came out as emotions. And I, working with him, started to kind of pick up on, okay, let me just let him take the lead. When he took the lead and I just helped him steer, I'm like, this guy is going to be a leader of the world. And like, they wanted to institutionalize him, which I think is so sad.
It's very heartbreaking at times, and I think a lot of it comes from the fact that autism has just evolved so rapidly, as well as many other diagnoses in that realm, like ADHD. We've just learned so much about them so quickly. Our understanding of autism, even in the 90s, was completely different. In the 90s, most people did not think that autistic individuals felt any type of attraction, romantic or sexual. Our understanding was so limited, and I think the real problem is a lot of people got trained then and learned a lot of information, and it was good information at the time, or at least seen as good information, but with how fast it's evolved, we really need to routinely come back and reflect on what we've learned, how it changes what we've internalized. And I think despite the fact that many people want what's best for autistic children, they're not always ready to take that step back and go, okay, what did I learn that is out of date now, that doesn't apply now?
Right.
How can I understand this autistic individual on their own terms?
Yeah.
I personally build a lot of my career on noticing patterns, on figuring out how to convey the autistic experience. But at the end of the day, the best way to work with an autistic individual is to understand what they're capable of, to understand what they want in this world. And that requires a really purposeful approach, an approach that sees them as an individual, as a person who has wants and things that they care about. And I think that has not always been something that's been impressed on people who work with autistic individuals. That's important to respect and understand that.
I agree, and I think like across the board too with all special needs, and I think what I found, and I was lucky enough to be trained in a way where it was very much meet the child where they're at, and it was very specialized. And it was a lot of like emotional connection, emotional regulation. And so I had the luxury in that setting to be able to just to hang with the boy and really, like you said, pick up on the patterns. What is the pattern of this individual? Because he was so different. And I worked respite at a respite center where we had weekend, like autistic weekend. And it was so different because it was kids who are really not functioning autism. And I think people sort of see like either the really low functioning or really high functioning, but there's so much nuances in between, and so much is it's not only the autism, but it's about knowing the individual and what are the personality things, and how's the autism just maybe like the windshield that's being pushed through. So I found working with him, the more I can just try to understand what his personality is, and the autism second, that helped because he just wanted to be seen as a regular person.
Well
and
put.
The autism was just these little, like, almost like an astrology sign.
I really like the word nuances there. I think talking about how an autistic individual functions has become very difficult because of a lot of the baggage that comes with the words we've used. Personally, I like using high support needs and low support needs because it speaks more to what they require and not how they function directly. Because I think that when we try to conceptualize how an autistic person functions, we make such ridiculous assumptions that really hamper our ability to effectively work with people. A lot of my work is explaining to people that I am a representative for the autistic community, even if when they see me, they don't see me as autistic or as having the same difficulties. I often have to explain that to assume that I am capable of certain things because they see me up here speaking is to make a wrongful assumption. I am not able to speak like this because I have gone beyond autism and built my skills beyond the barriers. I'm able to do this because this is something I enjoy doing. What I'm doing up here and what I do when I present, I find much less similar to genuinely sharing some deep, important information, and more so, I'm just repeating hundreds of scripts about things I like and find interesting and want to talk about. And that when they see me up here, this is me in my element.
Yeah.
This is the worst possible time to assume what I'm capable of, because this is me at my most capable.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to lose track of the fact that autistic individuals are different levels of capable, different levels of ready, depending on the situation. An autistic individual in the right element, in the right element, is so much different than an autistic individual who's not in their element, who's not in the right environment.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that, and and you can tell me if you think that there is a lot more gains in that area in schools, because you're doing advocacy work, you're working with individuals, and I've been sort of out of it for a while. But I did find one, yes, there's so much cookie cutter,
Yeah.
Placed upon each individual. But the other thing is, I know when I was working with this one boy, and there was a lot of different levels of autistic spectrum kids in the class, but I found being able to steer him towards something he was passionate about, getting him to his element, which I think all people need.
Absolutely.
Because we all have different quirks. I suffer from anxiety. Another person I know, she's an extreme introvert. It's everyone has something. So it's we kind of make autism as this big, not capable, but really it's we all have these little quirks, and the more we steer every kid, every individual into, okay, what is their success point? Where is their passion point? What are they really good at? Elevating that, and then that way, okay, then, the autism or the anxiety is just a conversation that's a bridge to get other people who maybe are scared of doing something to be well, no, I'm doing it too.
Absolutely.
I'm just not letting it get in the way of what I'm passionate about. Do you feel like it's changing, or more of that information is getting implanted into teachers, administrators?
I do think it's changing quite a bit, specifically this idea that natural passion and excitement is a valuable resource. So often when I'm talking to autistic individuals or to their parents about their experiences, something that comes up a lot is this feeling that they can't escape their special interest. Anything outside of their special interest is something they can't deal with. They're great when they're doing this, but as soon as that's gone, as soon as they can't do it, they have a hard time. And what I so often try to convey is the fact that what a special interest is to a lot of autistic individuals is it's a small corner of the world that we can understand. As I was saying earlier, the world is very difficult for us to understand. It never responds the ways we expect it to. And finding one corner where we understand every intricacy, whether that is our favorite musicians, whether that's Disney movies, whether it's how trains work. One world where we have all the answers, where we know, allows us a space where we're comfortable. And when we're trying to build empowerment, or as you're talking about, build out from these things, we should start there.
Yeah.
We should start where they're comfortable and use that as a starting point to approach other things. If you like Disney movies, how can we build on that knowledge into other realms?
Right.
If socializing, can you socialize around that?
And alerting people to what is already there that they may not see. So my example, with you, would be okay, yes, you're a speaker, you're an advocate, but also within that, obviously you're a writer because you had to write something to put it together.
Absolutely.
You know, and obviously, you know, you are a mentor because you are sharing this information. And so sometimes it's like, you know, and we all do this. We can be like, oh yeah, no, we're just a cook, but you're a cook, you're also a hostess, you're all this. So it's like once you sort of, it's pointed out to you, oh, you're all these things, it's like, oh, and I've already been doing it. So I guess I'm a little bit broader than I thought I was.
This is, I love that you made that point because this is something that I think we underestimate when it comes to autistic individuals. The fact that, as I was talking about with the highway, we tend to see problems that we would have or things that seem reasonable to us. And the things that come naturally, we kind of don't really consider other people struggling with. And as an autistic individual, I've had to convey that pretty much everything is work, even the things that they don't expect. Everything from simply deciding
everything
to do
is work.
Yeah.
We're going to end on that note. I would love to talk to you more, so I'm going to have you come back. And I want you to share a little bit more of your writing and inspire some more people out there. So I'm going to say thank you very much for being here. And then I'm going to say to our folks at home, do not go anywhere because there's more from Jeremy, and I hope you were inspired. And please check us out on Facebook, Speak Your Mind on the Facebook group, and check us out on YouTube and on channel 192. So thank you for sticking around.
Thank you so much for having me in and listening.
Wonderful.
Earlier, I talked about disempowerment, specifically what disempowerment feels like, that sense of hesitance and reluctance and tepidness when it comes to interacting with a world that you don't think is going to respond fairly or even any way that you can predict as an autistic individual. So starting there, how do we get to empowerment? What are the paths to empowerment? Well, to end today, I want to share two of my favorite paths. The first is what I bring up whenever parents, family members, caregivers, or professionals ask me how they can help encourage empowerment. I talk about creating opportunities for empowerment. As autistic individuals, it's very easy to lose focus and lose sight on the fact that what we want, what we care about, is important. Going back to my example earlier, why would I raise my hand to ask a question I genuinely want and am interested in if I'm just going to get in trouble for it for reasons I can't even comprehend? It's a better decision in that moment, or at least it feels like a better decision, to just not engage with the world like that, to just let it go by. So it's useful to remind us as autistic individuals that what we do, what we think, what we care about does matter. If an autistic individual really doesn't want to go to a resource or a service or an event, can you skip it? Maybe you can't skip it, but you can do something beforehand as a treat. Maybe you can do something afterwards, maybe next week. Maybe you can skip something else. Maybe you can't do any of that, but you can sit there and listen to them and validate their feelings. How do you show them that what they feel is not only important, but it will have meaningful impact that they care about? It will change the world around them. For autistic individuals, creating these opportunities for empowerment can be a little more complex, but I like to talk about setting yourself up for success. I work with a lot of individuals who have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. And when I ask them, what are you going to do next time differently? What are you going to do to make this happen? They almost always say something along the lines of, I'm going to try even harder. I'm going to really push myself. And this time, I am going to get out of bed. But that day comes and nothing's different because nothing's changed. So I ask them, what can you do the night before that will help making that decision easier? Can you put out your clothes? Will that make getting up less daunting? What about deciding breakfast the night beforehand? What about having a treat for breakfast so you have something to look forward to when you're getting out of bed? And then through trial and error, eventually they do get out of bed and they stand there and they go, wow, I did this. I made this happen. And they feel empowered. The second path to empowerment is pulling back the curtains. In The Wizard of Oz, the wizard is made out to be this giant, larger-than-life figure who can grant wishes. But at the end of the day, it's just a person behind a curtain pulling levers. And this is more relatable to the autistic experience than you may realize. Even when, as autistic individuals, we can't understand why certain decisions are being made or what decisions are being made, we understand that they are being made about us. People are having conversations about our difficulties, our future, and we don't always fully understand those conversations. And through that, it can be easy to start seeing the world as the wizard of something so far beyond your comprehension that there's no real reason to even engage with it meaningfully. But it can be really useful to pull back the curtain every now and then and show them that these are just people making decisions. One of the most effective ways I build trust with autistic individuals is when I first start working with them, I ask them to tell me about something they enjoy, usually their special interest. And after they talk about it for a bit, I go, okay, wait, I just want to be clear. I'm asking you about something you enjoy because that's a social skill. And talking about things you enjoy is important. You don't want people to just know what you enjoy, though. You want them to share your excitement and passion for it, right? Well, that means conveying why you enjoy it. So let's work on conveying why you enjoy the things you do. And through this, I am bringing them in and saying you have a right to know what's happening, why certain things are happening to you. And I also invite them to understand the world, to understand the parts of the world that are sometimes hidden from them. And through this, I encourage them to interact with the world. And by getting more comfortable with that, they start to shed that hesitance, that tepidness, those feelings of disempowerment. And they start to feel more ready to engage with the world, to find their place in it. And that readiness to engage with the world, that is what empowerment feels like.